This is Uncharted, a series of candid conversations about facing uncertainty. When we are called upon to be courageous, the strength of our leadership is tested. Red Direction has developed a library of resources to help you stay aligned, and in particular to develop your true north. Now, here's Jess.
Holy cow! People, this is another Uncharted, and I will tell you what, I am excited about this one particularly because Jeff, who I will introduce to you in just a moment, is somebody who uses a system that I also use as a reference point called the EOS transaction system. Did I actually get that right, Jeff?
It's actually an entrepreneurial operating system, but very close. Yep.
Okay, because it's EOS. That's what I was doing. So the entrepreneur operating system, got it. And what this is important because every single problem we ever have, as you will hear from Jeff, stems from the fact that we're not using our tools correctly, not that the tools are doing the wrong thing. So that is a big piece of what today's Uncharted is about. So when we find ourselves in these places where we feel like things are failing, and we're blaming it on our technology, we can take a second look back. Jeff Chastain is a creator, a problem solver, and he's a professional EOS, entrepreneur operating system implementer. He provides entrepreneurial business leaders with keys to scale their business. Now, here's the thing. He started at an early age making Legos. And why is this important today? It's important today because the better you are at creating Legos without instructions, the better software developer and programmer that you tend to become because you're looking at things in a different way. You're solving these business problems. And he did that. He went into the realm of software development, of technology scaling. And then what did he do? He realized that there were business problems to solve and that technology was only part of the solution. So he elevated himself up, changed direction just a little bit, brings all of that experience all the way from the Legos, all the way through the high-tech experience to us today. Jeff, welcome to Uncharted, the Bold Business Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. So we have to start with something just kind of crazy. Were you I don't even remember Legos having instructions when I was a kid. Is that true? Or did I just forget that they existed?
They definitely had instructions, and especially because I skipped by the little kid sets or whatever and went right to the big Technics, or I've actually still got the big Star Wars collectors ones here that are 1,000+ pieces kind of stuff. I still enjoy building those. Granted, they're $1,000 sets these days, so they're not cheap Legos anymore. But still, it's just that concept of building. I've always loved building things, and then Legos was just the outlet at that time, kind of a thing. But it was always that. I first came up growing up or whatever. It was always more of do I go building and architecture or do I go technology? And I ended up going down the technology path. But even still, it's like you're building virtual blocks with software or whatever kind of a thing. Although like I said, I still keep up with the Legos just for a diversion. Go get away and go still play as an adult.
Absolutely. Play is really important as an adult. I mean, I just picked up my flute recently. I haven't played in over 20 years. I've done puzzles my entire life, both, like written puzzles, but I like puzzle pieces. And mine are flat. My puzzles are flat. Your puzzles are 3D and spatial, aren't they?
Oh yeah. And you just got to have that breakaway because otherwise you can get way too in tune or tied up with all this business stuff. It's like, okay, got to take a mental break here.
Oh, totally and completely. I was just kind of thinking about this. So, what was your biggest takeaway from Legos into business, right? As you developed, as you went down this technology path, as you were doing these things, what did you get to bring with you from playing with
it's
Legos?
Interesting you ask. I've never actually really thought about it, but it really comes back to structure and you can, because a lot of these, especially the really big sets, the really big collector's series sets, you've got to build all of this foundation inside of the ship or whatever, and it's got all different kinds of colors. It looks like they just randomly, here's a bunch of bricks to go build the interior scaffolding of this spaceship or whatever Star Wars Star Destroyer kind of a thing, and then you build the outside frame that's all the right grays and all the right pieces and colors and shape and everything, but without that interior structure, because I've got a couple of the very early ones when I don't think they quite knew what they were doing yet from an engineering standpoint, and they're very weak sets that you breathe on it, right? I tried moving one when we moved houses, and it collapsed on itself, kind of a thing. It just didn't have that interior structure. So I've actually got that one still in pieces sitting up here on my desk that, okay, one of these days I'm going to get it rebuilt. But it's really, you've got to have that kind of, that structure behind it. You got to have that foundation, because it doesn't matter what you want to go out and build. If it's not, it goes back to the parable that you always hear about building the house on the sand versus building on the rock. If you don't have that foundation underneath you, we're obviously sitting in the middle of a pandemic right now, but still business faces challenges any day of the week, kind of thing. And if you don't have that solid foundation underneath the business, you're going to have a lot harder time growing. You're going to have a lot harder time scaling. You got survival issues, if nothing else, kind of a thing that, okay, there's going to be, whether it's a key personnel leaving or a pandemic hitting you and then getting shut down, kind of a thing. There's going to be challenges there to face. And are you grounded well enough to move forward with them?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and regardless of the system we've chosen, is what I'm hearing you say, regardless of the system that was chosen, the fact that we have this structure and we've been working on this structure, if we haven't been fortifying it, right? It's like a house. If we haven't been and I call it fortifying instead of maintaining. If we maintain a house, it just stays the same. When we fortify a house, it increases in value, or maintains its value instead of decreases in value over time. The same is true with our business. And we don't look at the infrastructure because there's not necessarily something that's easy to pick and go, yep, that part is profitable, or yep, this really shows that we're adding value here. It's when something like, and I'm going to use pandemic because it is all of those ugly things, all of those things. This is my favorite analogy that I heard, that we sweep everything under the rug and then we get used to the bumps that we're tripping over.
Yep.
And so to complement do you build your house on a rock or sand? Well, some of us have built our companies on things that are rocks that turn into sand.
Great,
and
yep.
We don't know until something crazy happens. So what is one of the most unexpected experiences that you've had, now that we've got this foundation of structure, the most unusual experiences that you had that made you realize that you were working with something that was built on sand, or rock that turned into sand, or tripping over the things under the rug?
Oh, it's really my journey through this. Like I said, I started out in technology. That was obviously growing up. I started programming way back in the days when it was still green flashing cursors and all that kind of fun stuff that I don't, that's too many years I don't want to count, but still I came out of, I didn't actually start entrepreneurial. I went in through corporate America doing HP, and then decided, hey, enough of corporate America, enough of corporate politics. Let's go do my own consulting firm. But I started out as a virtual CTO, basically working with entrepreneurial kind of companies all the way up through big Fortune 500 kind of stuff, doing different technology solutions, whether it was a CRM or a custom warehouse management, different products like that. And really in working with them, it kind of got frustrating, honestly, on my part, that, okay, they want a new CRM. It's an easy one or whatever here. And we implement the tool, we figure out the features, we go through all the process, they get to the other end, and it's like, our sales didn't increase with adding this new CRM. Why not? It's you must have done it wrong, or you must have done the wrong solution. It's the wrong tool, whatever. It's like, it goes back to the house thing. It's like, you can build a great looking house. If you don't have a foundation underneath it, it's going to fall down, kind of a thing. So if you don't have your sales process figured out as to, okay, this is who our target market is, this is our differentiator, this is our messaging that we're going to go sell them. Doesn't matter how great your CRM that you put on top of it is. And I'm not anti-technology by any means, kind of a thing. That's obviously my background, but technology needs to be a complement to the business, to the underlying structure, to enhance it, to make it move forward. And to your comment before, it's like a highly profitable business can cover up all kinds of things. Whereas we look at it in a situation today for some businesses or whatever, once that profit margin starts dropping, all of a sudden, a lot of those problems, those weak foundation, the issues we've been covering up all along start being exposed. It's like they've been there all along, but profit tends to cover up and hide a lot of those things that all of a sudden, wow, okay, profitability is not so high right now. And we got a lot of inefficiencies. We got a lot of weak structure inside of the business. And that's where it really starts to challenge businesses overall. And that was really my transition point. Was I started looking at it as like, okay, I'm keep seeing these patterns with companies doing this all along. And I'm a big reader, so I'm constantly, I've got a huge Amazon wish list right now of books that I don't know that I'll ever get to the bottom of, but ended up coming across the book Traction by Gino Wickman that explains all the EOS tools, all the EOS systems, and it just really resonated with me. It's like, okay, I don't have a business background like most entrepreneurs, kind of a thing, and it's like, okay, this is something I can work with. This is something I can sink my teeth into real easy. Deals with the frustrations, the challenges that I'm seeing people face, and I face myself, kind of a thing there. And I don't have to go get the MBA. I actually started trying to do a master's MBA at one point and got a semester into it. It's like, I don't want to do accounting. I don't want to do business. Forget this stuff and quit going down that path. And that's really kind of where EOS, for me at least, or that kind of system falls in. It's like, okay, this is the entrepreneur's version of an MBA here, that you can learn how to structure a business without having that kind of business background, because most entrepreneurs really don't have it. They go in with a new idea or new whatever.
Here's the thing. There's a lot of visionary and there's a lot of artistic capacity and capability. And it's that management piece that's really hard. And I would say, in my experience, is that entrepreneurs know what math they need on the surface, but they don't know what math they need to make decisions. And if that makes sense. And so,
it does, yeah.
And that's actually something, which, by the way, when the first time I picked up Traction, total side, I was like, oh, somebody wrote down what I do. This is actually a thing. I love this. And so we're going to link to the book Traction, because nobody does it better. Out of all of the books I've seen out there, nobody does it better. So I think it's fantastic that you went down this path, because it's solid all the way around. It really is solid. And the more you put in, the more you get out. And it helps prevent those blind spots, which is where I was going to go too, because like your story of, well, the CRM is going to give us more money. And I'm like, oh boy. And I've been in companies like that, by the way, technology or otherwise. It doesn't even matter. Even technology companies that build their own technology look to technology to solve some of their other problems.
Oh yeah, they're almost the worst at it, because they're just enamored with it. Yeah.
Right. And so it's a matter of, well, so how do we look and how do we reinvent? And that's one of the things that what you're doing with companies is so important. It's, well, nothing ever stays the same. And with so many moving parts, as long as they're all moving in some way together,
yep,
we've got the ability to continue to move forward. And you're right, you don't need an MBA. And so and I think every entrepreneur out there, and I'm going to put myself in this category, okay, business owner, entrepreneur, somebody with budget accountability. A lot of us, unless we have that accounting credibility behind us, don't think we're good at math. And I'm like, you know what? I may not be able to make you the spreadsheet to get you to the information, but I know what information I want. And if the spreadsheet tells me that I got that information.
Yeah.
And that's good enough. Sometimes it's good enough. And have you ever been in that situation where you were like, okay, well, this is good enough? And does Traction actually support that? It's been a while since I've read.
No, Traction, in that case, it's actually anti-me, because Traction is all about simplicity. It's like, okay, how can we make things as simple as possible? And I'm still that type that, okay, everything's got to be perfect out of the gate. And that's always been my challenge, kind of a thing there, that I want all the tools, all the processes, all the procedures, everything built right out of the gate. And the reality is, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that's the wrong attitude. You really don't, honestly, you don't even need Traction. You don't need a business system right out of the gate. You need a product out there. You need your market defined. You need to figure out, okay, is this even valid from an idea perspective? Then Traction gives you the ability to take and expand that and scale that out, because that's really where you're looking at needing that foundation. You don't need the foundation on day one.
We here at Red Direction can only fund programming with the financial help of our supporter listeners. To learn more about the additional benefits and value supporter listeners receive, go to reddirection.com. Now, back to Jess.
Well, everybody who's listening to this podcast, and I shouldn't say everybody because we're excluding people who are just starting, and I know they're listening too. The point of listening to this podcast is that you want to keep the lights on and you want to do what's next after those lights have learned how to be kept on.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the key piece right there.
Yeah, that really is key. Yeah.
once you can keep the lights on, now what do you want to do? And the sooner you shift to that, after you keep the lights on, the sooner you can scale and find different opportunities. Otherwise, I see that's where I hear, and there's nothing against serial entrepreneurs that are listening, by the way, because I think we get bored. Serial entrepreneurs get bored and they want to go solve another problem and find another market because they like that. They liked getting to the point of keeping the lights on.
Well, they like either the start, or honestly, they get frustrated. And that's what I see a lot of times. That it's like, okay, what used to work with my core team of 2 or 3 people when we were first starting out, we were so agile, we could change, we could do anything we wanted. Now, 3, 4 years in, we're just stuck in the mud. It's like something that used to take a week, last before, now takes 6, 9 months. It's like, this is not what I built. This is, it actually is what you built, but still, you got that visionary mentality of, okay, new ideas. I want to keep moving. I want to go fast. And the company is just not going anywhere. And it's a complexity issue. And that's really why EOS focuses on the simplicity side. Because you look, it's a real simple model, but you look at it and say, okay, if I've got 2 people, there's one line of communication between 2 people. Nice, fast, easy, simple. All you have to do is add one more person to that. Add a third person. You got a 50% increase in people, or in capability there. You've got a 300% increase in communication right there, because now you got 6 different lines right there. Add one more person, it just blows up exponentially. And most people, most business leaders don't really see that. Hey, it's just another customer. It's just a slight variation on our product or whatever here. We're going to make a red widget instead of a blue widget for this one customer or whatever. And it's doing that just little pieces, little things at a time, builds in that complexity in the business. And all of a sudden they're 3, 4 years in, is like, this is not what I envisioned. And therefore I'm going to bail out and go start something new, where it's like, okay, it's kind of counterintuitive, but it's like, let's add some process, let's add some structure, and actually give you that fun, give you that flexibility back to the business.
Well, and isn't it interesting? So where you put your flexibility to your example right there, I'm thinking about my first business. It's an e-commerce business, and we served a lot of different clients that all sold software. And in that, everybody else around us was doing exactly what you just said. Well, let's make this part blue. Well, let's do this. So let's make this little tweak. And they were slowing down their growth, and they were not able to scale.
Yep.
Our company took a different tact from the get-go. And I have to totally, okay, so full disclosure, my first company is now with the guy that I married. So I am going to talk about my husband for a minute.
Okay.
Because full disclosure, this was the smartest thing and the biggest lesson that I have ever learned in business, to the point about simplicity. He would say, no, we're not doing that. No, we're not doing that. I don't care they're the biggest client. And I'm like, I care. I'm in charge of sales. I'm in charge of the vision. I'm in charge of what people are thinking about us. And we need them as a client, so other people, right? All of these other things. So we had that, but we had the same vision. How do we serve the most clients and make the biggest impact? And so even though we didn't agree in the day-to-day about what our roles were and all that other good stuff, and we were also in our early 20s, and so neither one of us could do wrong and all this, right? You have all the ego that goes with being in your early 20s.
Yep.
The biggest lesson that I took away from this, and this is a lesson from success, was that we looked at what people were requesting. We looked at how people were using the technology, and we made feature decisions and prioritized them based off of those 2 things. And when we could help the majority of our clients by adding a feature, those went to the top of the list.
Yep.
And the reason that happened was because then everybody was like, oh, I had no idea. I had no idea that I could do this and improve my business. Well, now we're helping every client with one small thing instead of every client with everything. And I think that's a big, simplicity is hard. And for people who like to go create, like what you're talking about, as a company is building, even finding the lights on, but definitely in this next stage of business, the curiosity that comes with solving those problems and how simple can we make it is just as challenging as starting over.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it really is. And it's a struggle for the creator, for the visionary that says, hey, I got a new idea. Let's go try this. It's like, okay, we've got to have like you're talking about, a vision for the company. Who are we trying to serve? How are we trying to serve them? What are we trying to bring? Because if the visionary is coming back every week to say, hey, I just went to this conference, or I went to this book, and sitting there, the tail wagging the dog kind of a thing, jerking the whole company around, you're never going to move it forward right there. And honestly, you can chase all your people off too. They're getting tired of this. It's like, wait a minute, I was working on this project. Now I'm over here. Now I'm back here, kind of a thing here. It's like that doesn't give you any kind of structure in your business.
How did that show up when you were a CTO?
I watched several companies just absolutely tear themselves apart and lose key lawyers, lose key employees and things like that. It's like, I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of not having, on one hand, the CEO is sitting there saying, okay, we're going to try this new thing. And on the other hand, he's sitting there blaming the teams like, okay, why have we got so many unfinished projects sitting around? Why have we got these features that are half finished sitting in the pipeline? We're wasting all of my resources here, not building this forward. It's like, that's because you've reprioritized 10 times through the life cycle of this. And it's like a lot of times that visionary, that CEO can be the worst enemy of their own company, kind of a thing. It's like they're so frustrated that, okay, we're not doing things, but there's no cohesive vision that everybody's working from either.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been that CEO. And by the way, that was one of the hardest lessons of leadership and accountability that I ever learned, was to hold up the mirror and go, oh, nothing's getting done because I prioritized everything.
Yeah.
And the team that I have can't do everything. And they don't know what's important, and they don't know how to communicate. And so they're doing whatever I say, not what actually needs to be done. And that was a really hard lesson to learn. And by the way, every CEO goes through that. And it doesn't even matter if you've been a multiple time CEO, you'll go through it again, because there is that point of vision holding, I think, Jeff, compared to executing on the vision, and having somebody that can help you hold that vision and let the visionary keep going, and then you, the anchor, going, okay, I'm going to build that bridge to make sure that everybody can come along. And also recognizing that there is going to be frustration, because to get to a big vision, there has to be ruthlessness in the moment. And people, and I'm still working on that ruthless part. And I use the word, I don't use relentless, I don't use persistent. All those are good words, but it's in or it's out. And if it's out and you let it in, it mucks up the whole works.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, in EOS terminology, what we do is we look at it as a visionary and an integrator. So the integrator is the one that's the process person. They're the ones that's in charge of the roadmap, things like that drive the company, freeing up that visionary to say, okay, you want to go out and have lunch with the big partners or whatever. You want to go out and play golf with that client, go for it. Give you back your freedom. Let them handle the day-to-day operations, kind of a thing. It's one of the books in the EOS library is called Rocket Fuel. And it's really helps define out and clarify those two roles, because really when you put that visionary type person in that integrator standpoint, or that integrator seat, that's really where we start seeing, hey, you basically got 90 days at best, kind of a thing, on the direction of the company before it completely shifts again. And you've got to be able to separate those apart. And that's one of those areas really where, again, it's the visionary that started the company. A lot of times they had the ideas and everything, and getting them to say, okay, next phase of the company means you've got to release some things. You've got to be able to take that hat off and say, okay, find the part of this that you're good at, that you really enjoy working with, and then work to unload all those other hats. If you don't like marketing, if you don't like customer service, if you don't like whatever sales, find somebody else that complements you. Set up the system, set up the tools so that you can hand that hat off and step back, because it's almost the worst case of, I forget, there was somebody posted online, I think it actually may have come out of the Rocket Fuel stuff earlier this week, talking about a helicopter visionary that we always hear about, helicopter parents hovering over their kids. It's the same thing. The visionary is still sitting there. Yeah, you've handed off the sales hat to your new VP of sales here, but you're still sitting in their pocket saying, okay, have you talked to this client? Have you made this call yet? Why aren't you meeting this numbers, kind of a thing? It's like you're killing their creativity and killing their spirit too. Whereas if you had the metrics, if you had the scorecards, the dashboard there to say, okay, sales is meeting expectations, therefore I'm going to let them run. I don't need to be in their back pocket. I can go play golf, or I can go take that client on the fishing trip or whatever, kind of a thing, and go do what I enjoy doing. Because really, if you sit down with most visionaries and say, okay, do you enjoy sitting in the back pocket of the sales guy? No, I really don't, but I feel like I have to, kind of a thing. It's like most of the time that's because you don't have the systems, the visibility, the transparency in your organization in place. You don't know what's going on over there. So you feel like you have to stay there. Whereas if you had, again, that's kind of where I get with, if you build the processes, if you build the systems, if you build that foundation, it's actually freeing to you to where I trust that my people are doing their things because all the numbers are right. I don't have to second guess them. I can see the dashboard, I can see the metrics and trust that my company's moving the right direction. And I can go take some time off. I don't have to sit here and immerse myself in that day-to-day operations all the time.
How are you implementing this for your company?
It's it follows the exact same process. I've got, it's a solo coaching practice at this point. So obviously some of the tools when it comes to having meetings, having multiple departments and things like that don't 100% apply, but really from the concept of especially the vision planning and saying, okay, who am I trying to go out and reach? What is my differentiator? What's my 10-year plan as to where I'm trying to aim to with my business, and bring all that back down to even the 90-day plan to say, okay, how am I going to work with this? And what am I doing in the next 90 days to reach that 10-year plan? All of that is 100% applicable, whether you're the startup at that point or whether you're a solo practitioner kind of thing all the way into your business. It's having that kind of vision and that kind of longer term plan, because otherwise we get all the spam, honestly, through LinkedIn or whatever. Hey, come sign up for our lead generation, or we'll build your app for you, or whatever. It's like, if you don't have a target, a plan, then, and you're following all that kind of stuff, you'll never make any progress there. So it's really all the tools still apply, even in a small business kind of a thing. It's just
ruthless. I'm telling you, you just said it. Well, you said it in a lot of words, so I'm going to boil it right back down.
No, it really is. It's
and that's so true, because, and actually, for people listening, you probably felt me smile through the airwaves. For those of you watching, you know that I smiled when he was talking about this 10-year plan. I am so grounded in longer term plans and what is coming that I think that really is the biggest thing. And people who didn't have a plan before are recognizing right now, right here in the middle of this pandemic, how important a plan is beyond a year, because it's that vision that creates that 10-year plan. And that vision is going to keep changing, and that 10-year plan is going to keep changing. The 10 years will never get here, but each year moving toward that 10 years does. And you're right. What I hear you saying, even for where you're at and what you're doing in your company, which is, by the way, the same thing I'm doing in my company, which is, are we clear enough? Do I know where we stand in the market? Who else is playing there? How are they playing? What is the perception of them versus the perception of us? How do my values drive what I decide to do? And how do my company's values drive what is chosen to be most priority to go forward? So every size of business benefits from that part.
Yeah.
Is what I hear you saying.
Oh yeah. That is one piece that for sure you've almost got to have out the gate, because even going back to the software company, like you were talking about, we've got to know who we're trying to go out and serve with this piece of software we're building. And we don't need to go build, because again, I've done the software as a service company myself kind of a thing actually a couple of times. It's like, if you go try to build before you get out of the gate, go build all the features for everybody kind of a thing, you'll never even get out of the gate. It's like, you've got to know, okay, this is my target. This is who I'm going after. And this is the absolute minimal feature set that I can build to reach that target, and stay laser focused on that right there. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the key things. And a lot of people look at vision. It's like, to me, vision is, they'll look at vision and say, okay, it's our mission statement or whatever we go stick up on the About Us page of the website and don't look at for 4 or 5 years after. But it's so much more than that, it still includes that marketing to say, okay, who's our target market? How are we differentiating to them? It includes all that planning to say 10 years, bring it back 3 years, bring it back 1 year, bring it back 90 days, getting more detail, because the 10-year, at least in my perspective, should just be a picture out there. It's like, nice goal. Hey, we want to be in 5 new markets. We want to be this size. We want to do whatever. It's nothing. You don't need to go build a 3-inch binder here that has all the detailed plans, everything, because that's just one, it'll never happen that way. And obviously,
Right.
I don't think anybody walked into this year saying, "Hey, we're gonna handle a pandemic this year, and it's gonna be great," kind of a thing. It's things are
Right.
gonna happen there,
Yeah.
but we can still look out and say, "Hey, honestly, probably our 10-year picture still looks about the same. Our 90-day plan as to what we're doing in the next 90 days, yeah, that looks radically different, but still." Even 3 years or 10 years out, that's probably still about the same. We've still got that one pretty solid here. And
You're
having that
describing
kind
a
of,
true north.
yeah,
Right? Your North Star. You're describing the North Star. That's what that's for. I actually have a picture of a ladder. Georgia O'Keeffe is one of my favorite artists, and I don't like her flowers, but I do like everything else she ever painted besides her flowers. And one of those happened to be this ladder it's got like 5 or 7 rungs on it, and I'm like, there in the middle. That's my 5-year plan.
yeah,
So whatever works. And to your point, to be able to say, okay, you're right. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, we get where we're going. We know we're solid in who we are. So how do we show up today to stay who we are tomorrow?
yeah. I look at it as like a roadmap. It's like, okay, if you don't have a destination on the map and you're just going to start driving, what's the likelihood you're going to get anywhere for that matter, kind of thing. And I know people just, hey, I'm going to go drive for fun. I never got that one, but still, it's like, if you don't have the point on the map that says, okay, we're trying to get there. And granted, there's multiple ways through the map, most likely to get to that point. But if you don't have that point on the map to say, okay, this is where we're headed, how do you ever expect to get there? Or how do you ever expect to, for sure, efficiently get there? That you're going to waste a ton of time, ton of resources, ton of whatever, just floundering around at that point.
It's so true, Jeff. So what's next for you? I mean, you and your company is going through this. Me and my company is going through this unprecedented change. And, what are you relying on, and where are you going as you're navigating through the now toward your plan in the future, to that point on the map?
It's, in all honesty, it really hasn't changed much my today at this point. We've obviously been forced more online, and I think that actually in many ways has been good. Coaching to a large degree in the past has always been, if you want to do it, a real effective job, it's face-to-face, getting in meetings rooms and stuff like that. And really the technology, if we'd done this 5 years ago, even maybe 10 years ago, I can't imagine how we would have survive necessarily from a technology standpoint. But today it's the technology's there. Switching and doing something like this virtually is a real easy pivot there. But so it really hasn't changed much for me from a today perspective. And really my goal still is with my practice, I do, like I said, very face-to-face, very hands-on coaching. This is not a video series or a webinar or anything. Go watch this and do it yourself. This is, I look at it as almost how do you go learn to ride a bicycle? That you've got your parents sitting there holding on the back seat for a little while. The goal is not for them to sit there and hold you for the rest of your life on the back of the seat. It's for you to learn, for you to grow up, and for you to run this yourself. So that's my role as a coach, is to sit here and help facilitate, help you grow, but not to be working in the business. And I can still do that virtually, but I am limited on the number of people I can do that with at the same time, because I spend full day long sessions with each one of my clients. And the reality is there's just only so many days in a calendar year. So if I look at more than 20 clients at a given time, that's pretty much, I'm maxed out at that point. So that's really my longer term goal, is to say, okay, I need to figure out a way to basically almost build more of a firm here that I can scale out my coaching right there to help more people. Because I'm based out of the Dallas area, and it's like, you look at it, it's like there's just so many business. I forget what the number of count, just in terms of that small to mid-sized entrepreneurial business that could leverage this. It's like, there's no way in the world I could even make a dent in that thing, kind of scratch the surface there. And I get the questions all the time. It's like, how can I do this? How can I help? And it's like, I don't have literally the time, the capacity to sit there and help everybody that I'm talking to, kind of a thing. So that's really my 5 to 10 year goal out there, is to say, okay, how can I expand this and turn it into a bigger operation, just from being able to help more people and be able to reach out and touch more people that way, just because of the model right there really is the way it's built.
Great. Oh my gosh. The time just flew, Jeff. We're basically toward the end. So all of our listeners, you're here. You heard it. You heard it from Jeff. You've got something that you can use right now. And you heard how he's using his own tools, which, by the way, is a big key for me, because I'm like, if I don't walk my walk, what? And
Yeah.
Jeff is walking his talk, and
You got to believe in the
sharing it
system.
with us. What'd you say?
You got to believe in the system. And if you believe it, you're going to use it yourself. So, yep.
That's the thing. And if we're not, and we have to walk the walk. There's an integrity there that I'm taking away. And so for me, values are really big. And what I was noticing in the notes that I'm taking today, of course, Legos is in the biggest letters across the page. Partly because we can put stuff together and we can take it apart, and we don't need something new. We can use the same Legos to make something else.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing is that we might have more than what I'm hearing you say, Jeff, is that we might have more than we realize right in front of us. We just have to look at it and be really willing and be curious to look at it differently, so we can know how to show up today, again, to be part of our future tomorrow for that point on the map, as you were talking about. Okay, so I tell you what, Bold Business Podcast listeners, this has been another program, Uncharted, and Jeff here with me. You heard it here. We're going to link to Traction, and you're going to be able to connect with him through our social media. I appreciate you listening in today. Super excited. Have a great one. Until next time.
We here at Red Direction can only fund programming with financial help from our supporter listeners. To learn more about the additional benefits and value-added supporter listeners receive, go to reddirection.com. Chart your own course by taking advantage of Red Direction's Unstuck Quick Consulting Services and our vast library of information on the website. Visit reddirection.com. Remember, preparedness and the right perspective is absolutely necessary.